to the Bean Ninjas podcast, where you get an all-access pass to see what happens behind the closed doors of a fast-growing global bookkeeping and financial reporting business.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bean Ninjas podcast. And today we're talking with another Bean Ninja, Colleen Heggarty, about Single Touch Payroll. Welcome to the show, Colleen.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, great. So excited to be talking with you. There's been a number of changes related to payroll. And what we're talking about today is the legislation around Single Touch Payroll. So why don't we start with having a quick chat around what it is. What is Single Touch Payroll?
Single Touch Payroll, in short, STP, because the ATO like their acronyms, is an initiative to report salary and wage, pay-as-you-go and super each time a payslip is generated.
And how is that different to the way that payroll is being reported to the ATO currently?
So the initiative is generally to actually digitise the payroll system and to streamline compliance. So at the moment, surprise, surprise, not everyone is using a payroll-generated accounting software. There are businesses that are currently using the old carbon paper and payment summaries, and therefore at the end of the financial year, they sometimes actually match the physical payment. So instead of finalising the payroll at the financial year, the ATO have come up with a running balance system. When a pay run is generated, it will report to the ATO.
And does that impact the amounts that are being paid to the ATO when a pay run is generated, or is this just purely a reporting mechanism?
It's purely a reporting mechanism, so it's completely separate. So it's just a connection inside the software to the ATO to report your wages. You still pay your tax, you still pay your super, you still pay as you go, and GST is exactly the same.
Great. And so who is going to be impacted by this?
Businesses who already have a cloud-based accounting software like Xero already process their payroll, and it won't actually impact them a lot. The only steps that are required for them is to make the connection from Xero to the ATO in registering for the Single Touch Payroll. The biggest impact are business owners who aren't on a payroll system or that are still managing their payroll manually, and there are quite a lot of them still. So they will actually need to move to a digital system.
Right. So if you're already using a cloud accounting system like Xero to process payroll, then you might have to activate Single Touch Payroll, and we'll put some instructions in the show notes, but that is fairly straightforward. There's just a couple of steps to do that. Whereas if you're processing payroll manually, then you'll need to move to a digital system, which is probably a bigger change. So it's important that if you are one of the business owners in that category, that you start preparing for that a little earlier.
Correct.
Which brings me to the next question around dates. So when are business owners required to make the changes to and implement Single Touch Payroll?
So all employees will be from the 1st of July 2019. So employers with 20 or more have already been doing this from the 1st of July 2018. So they've already been reporting their payroll details. 1st of January this year, the legislation changed. So now everyone will have to adopt to a payroll solution.
And as a business owner, what could I do to become Single Touch Payroll ready?
So we have a standard subscription, and it already has payroll module in it for 2 to 4 employees, excluding automatic super, which means super is already reported outside of Xero, and you usually would use ATO Super Clearinghouse as it's free. The other subscriptions, Premium 5 and up, have the payroll module, and automatic super is included, and therefore you just need to check the data inside Xero for those 2 levels of subscription, which means the tax file numbers, the date of birth, the address, before you actually connect it. The individuals who are either too small or don't need a standard subscription, which is $50 a month, Xero have actually just recently released a payroll-only subscription, which is $10 per month. And this includes employees from 1 to 4 employees, and it doesn't include automatic super. So it's very similar to your standard subscription. You just don't get the use of the rest of the super product, zero product.
Great. And I think that's a nice recap for zero users or people who are considering becoming a zero user. So if you're already using zero, you may, if you're on a standard plan or above, you'll have some access to payroll. And if you're on premium 5, then you'll have access to automatic super, which is a way that you can lodge and pay superannuation directly through Xero rather than needing to log into something like the ATO Super Clearinghouse. And then if you've not previously used a digital system to prepare payroll, then the recently released Xero payroll only subscription, which you mentioned was $10 per month, Colleen, that might be a good option in terms of getting started and meeting the STP requirements. And once you're up and running on that, I would actually recommend having a look at the full Xero subscription, because there's a number of automation opportunities with tools like Xero where you can connect to bank feeds and connect to other Xero add-ons. And so there may be opportunities for automation with the rest of your bookkeeping. But we're here today to talk about Single Touch Payroll, so I will focus again on that. Colleen, who should actually do the opt-in process? And we described opt-in as connecting the accounting platform or the payroll platform to the ATO. Who would organise that? Would that be the business owner? Would that be the accountant, a bookkeeper?
Whoever's doing payroll. So I would suggest to opt in to STP. If the business owner is running the pay runs, they should opt in. If the accountant or bookkeeper is processing pay runs, then they should be opting in on behalf of the business. And the reason for that is they are actually processing payroll. So they look at the data and the inputting of that data. So they would know if something's not connecting right.
So let's say we've opted in, we've processed pay run, well, a number of pay runs, and it's BAS time. Is there any difference in the way that I submit my BAS with the introduction of Single Touch Payroll?
No changes. The Single Touch Payroll is completely separate to your BAS system. So each month or quarter, depending on your registration, you still need to prepare your GST and pay-as-you-go information. You still pay it to the ATO by the due dates, still pay the super by the due dates. The ATO will be using this information as data matching, recording it against your BASs should be recorded against the ATO through the STP system.
And what about the need to provide payment summaries to employees at the end of the year and to prepare an annual payment summary report to the ATO? Is there any change around those requirements with the introduction of Single Touch Payroll?
You won't have to do it anymore. So this is the eliminating of the compliance issue. So payment summaries won't need to be sent to employees anymore. So employees won't have to produce them. The ATO will actually use the Single Touch Payrolls as a single sole record, recording the wages, the tax, and the super contributed. Employees will actually able to access their payment summaries, logging into their MyGov accounts. So this might get a lot of people to actually register for their MyGov accounts. There also won't be any payroll annual summary reports of the financial year. So as a business owner, you fill in your individual payment summaries to go out to your employees. You also fill in a summary page. So there's actually none of that. And because we're updating the ATO on a pay-by-pay basis, you won't actually need to prepare it anymore.
Right. And I think the only step that you'll need to do is let the ATO, when you've done your last pay run of the year, and that way they know that you've closed out and that the numbers that they have are final and capture all the pay runs. So let's have a quick chat about what information is sent when using STP. So what information gets sent to the ATO?
So the STP system is still in its very baby stages, I guess. So the reporting is very basic at the moment. What gets reported each payroll is your net payment, your tax, and your super. And that information is forwarded to the ATO behind the scenes. And when I'm talking about net payment, I really mean your ordinary earnings, your directors and parental leave, those kind of payments. Payments like your superannuation lump sums, compensation payments or employee share gain schemes are not included. And the ATO do have a list of mandatory, voluntary and non-reportable items.
And what do I do if I make a mistake when I'm processing a pay run? So say I had an employee who submitted a timesheet and we processed the pay run, and then we realised there was an error in the timesheet, and I want to go back and change that.
Well, everyone makes errors. So there are kind of 3 ways to fix it. The first one is to revert the pay run, so take it back to draft, make the adjustment and refile it. There is a limitation with this, especially if you've got Automatic Super connected and you've processed that super, it will actually lock the pay run. So then your next option is to do an unscheduled pay run for that period. And if you can't do that, your next option is actually to fix the error or do the adjustment within the next pay run.
Okay, great. And I think from the information that I'm seeing coming out of the ATO, they are going to be flexible and lenient with this being a new system. So I would expect, especially in the first year or two, that if there are errors and you need to change them, or if there are some delays in getting started, that there will be some leniency in the beginning.
Yes, the ATO's attitude is they're making it a gradual transition, and they're making flexible options. So in saying that, you're never going to not have to do it. It will be mandated eventually.
Yeah. So what would be your advice to someone that needs to get started for Single Touch Payroll? And I know that at Beaniges we have a couple of products which may be able to help with this.
So I recommend looking into a digital payroll solution, as mentioned before, within a Xero subscription or the standalone Xero payroll option. Beaniges also has our Xero Health Check and Xero Setup, which can prepare for you for STP, where we would check the data or set up the payroll for you in time to report the STP, including a training session.
And I'll just quickly clarify the difference between a health check and a setup. So a health check is where you already have a Xero file and we're checking settings, whereas a setup is where you might not have a Xero file or you don't have payroll set up, and then we do the setup component. And then in both cases, we're trying to encourage business owners to get involved in their bookkeeping, and so we train you on how to do that with a training session. So where can listeners go to get more information about Single Touch Payroll?
So Xero are currently running Single Touch Payroll webinars at the moment. You can find these under the resources in the small business guides. And the ATO are also running webinars, and they have very helpful links that we can refer you to.
Great. So we'll link to those resources in the show notes. And just in case anyone missed the date, when does STP come into effect again?
1st of July 2019. I recommend you guys looking at STP maybe around May or June. This is when you do your tax planning and also you plan for the next 12 months. So that might be a good time to opt in.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Colleen. And if anyone in the audience has any further questions about STP, make sure to write in or comment on the show notes and we will get back to you. Thanks, Colleen.
No worries. Thank you.
By the way, are you wanting support to get paid and make better decisions? We've put together a Xero small business toolkit, including cash flow forecast template and guide to setting up Xero. Grab it for free at beaniges.com/Xero toolkit. And that's XEROTOOLKIT.